Welcome to your bite-sized learning with Thomas International. Today we'll be looking at tapping into the aptitude and ability behind the behavior. We'll be using both the PPA and GIA in a recruitment scenario. So why do we at Thomas International believe in using multiple assessments? We know that psychological factors have some of the strongest relationships with overall success at work. One of the earliest forms of candidate analysis was handwriting. This has been widely debunked since, as it has been shown to have no correlation to successful hires. A lot of companies still rely on the good old CV, focusing mostly on past experience. This has been shown to have a statistically insignificant relationship with success at work. This means relying on the CV alone is much more likely to lead you astray. Psychological science lets you see the real person behind the CV and allows you to beat the skills gaps by finding the candidates that have the right aptitude, behaviors, and personality to flourish in your organization. Let's start by tapping into behavior with the Thomas PPA. Using DISC theory, the Thomas Personal Profile Analysis, or PPA, provides information on assessment takers' fears, motivators, values, and behaviors. Behavioral assessments help organizations and recruiting managers understand the level of interpersonal skills that a person has and helps predict how they might respond to new and different scenarios. A person will be hired for having the right skills, knowledge, and technical expertise, but they're most often fired, reassigned, or overlooked for promotion because they lack the appropriate interpersonal skills. Behavioral assessments help to ensure that the best fitting candidates are hired and that the right people are promoted. They also enable people to increase their self-awareness and help individuals and groups to better communicate with each other. If we want to dive a little bit deeper, that's when we can tap into aptitude with the General Intelligence Assessment, or GIA. Aptitude has been widely acknowledged as one of the most important predictors for success at work. The Thomas Aptitude Assessment, or GIA, helps you to predict how quickly an individual will take to get to grips with a new role or regime. It really gauges a candidate's suitability to the job and gives insight into how quickly they will grasp a role. Therefore, recruitment can only benefit by getting the right person for the role that needs filling. Many organizations around the world use aptitude testing as a standard part of their recruitment process, as they offer efficient and objective comparisons between candidates. Aside from just being able to see if a candidate is best suited for the role, they can compare the candidates that have scored well against the most important criteria, fairly providing a balance between each applicant. They help you to identify skill strengths and skills gaps. By doing so, you can get an understanding of what's needed to help the candidate succeed and even use the test to try alternative scenario planning to see what can be improved or find a shining star in the recruitment process. Aptitude tests are also standardized, which helps you to feel confident in the data being provided to be both valid and reliable for the business. Now let's take a closer look at the GIA. The GIA measures an individual's fluid intelligence, mental processing speed, concentration, response to training, and fast track potential. The overall score is an indicator of the ability of the individual to respond quickly and positively to training programs and new information. The GIA isn't only about overall trainability. It is comprised of 5 different subtests that are designed to allow you to see areas of strength as well as skills gaps in your candidate. The first subtest is reasoning, the ability to think on your feet, to be able to understand what someone has said or what you have just read. Thus, it is vital for negotiating or selling. Perceptual speed is the ability to spot mistakes, how quick you are to see differences, and generally how able you are to spot the things that matter. Number speed and accuracy is not just numeracy, it is the ability to juggle with numbers in your head and to be able to concentrate with numerical concepts. It's an affinity for numbers. Word meaning measures the ability to clearly understand the written word and measures vocabulary and the ability to quickly recall the meaning of words. Spatial visualization is all about the ability to create and manipulate mental images of objects. Each of the 5 tests has one type of task, and all the questions in a given test are of an equal level of difficulty. The individual score is then determined by the speed and accuracy of their responses. Now it is time for us to work with some real-life examples. The 2 roles that we have chosen are the sales leader and financial manager to give you a good grasp of how the PPA and GIA can be used in different contexts. The sales leader responsibility is more than just leading. Most of the tasks involve the monitoring the progress of sales, creating strategies to attain financial gains, managing the workforce, as well as passion and determination to make sure that the team is driving towards the company goal. For the sales leader role, we've got 2 candidates, candidate A and B. So we're going to throw up their behavior profiles onto the screen. Before I give any more insight, what do you see? As per usual, when looking at the PPA graph, we can see that they both have dominance and influence as their working strengths, their main focus of their behavioral profile. Overall, both profiles have dominance and influence. They both want to push for results, both like working with and through people, enjoying variety and also working independently, but will respect the rules if need be. Very similar, but there are some slight small differences in priorities. Candidate A may prefer to lead with a motivating approach, then focusing on closing sales, while candidate B will drive for those results and then persuade people to go along with that plan. So overall, very similar behavioral profiles, but with some minor differences in priorities. So after the previous slide, you may have felt tempted to say that the candidates are pretty neck and neck. Maybe a slight preference towards the candidate that has a D leading profile, thinking that might be slightly more sales suited. But when we look at the GIA results, we see a little bit of a difference. Now it's very important to note, the numbers on the screen are not percentages, they are percentiles. This is where we transform the raw scores of their results on the GIA to something a bit more meaningful, comparing them then to the working population to see what do these scores mean. Do they perform less than most would? Are they above average, etc. The different percentile groupings are listed below the overall score. If you want more information on that, join me on Aptitude accreditation training. So what does your gut feel now? Well, what we can see are there are some clear differences between the 2 candidates, now that we're looking a little bit deeper beyond the behavior. What we can see is there's significant difference in the overall scores. One candidate will easily problem solve with new information, while the other may need time to process that information and could make errors in quick decision making. Also, with that difference in overall scores, one candidate, candidate A, is much more likely to pick up new skills quickly and thrive in a changing environment, where candidate B might be better suited to more routine environments or areas where once you have that initial learning, there's not much ongoing learning required. They can rely on their expertise. So based on looking at both the PPA and GIA results, we can see that our preferred candidate would be candidate A. And this is based on the fact that the behavior with the PPA assessment fits the role, even though we might have been tempted to choose the D-leading profile. Once we unwrapped a little bit deeper and looked at the aptitude results, we can clearly see one individual is going to thrive much more in the fast-paced environment of a sales leader role, based on both the overall score as well as that all-important reasoning skill that's really important when it comes to sales and negotiating. Now let's try our second example, the financial manager position. The job requirements here are a little bit different. More about providing accurate financial reports and information, developing cash flow statements, making financial forecasts, budgeting, and giving that strategic financial advice back to the organization. If we look at this role, we start again with the PPA results. Again, we've got 2 candidates, candidate A, candidate B. So there are 2 different PPA profiles in front of us, but what else do you see? What we see at Thomas is that one profile is dominance leading, a strong focus on results, directive and assertive approaches. Where candidate B, the other profile, is more compliance leading, strong focus on quality and standards, providing accurate and compliant approaches to the business. Candidate A still has compliance and steadiness as working strengths above the middle line, so they still will have that accurate approach, still have the thorough approach as well, but we can see dominance is the main driver, so wanting to direct their own behavior, their own tasks, and have that assertiveness as well. So as discussed, there are some noticeable differences between the two profiles. So you may be tempted to think these two candidates might have quite similar aptitude results actually, even though the behavior results are quite different. However, if we dive into the subtest, we can see that there's a bit of a different story. So both of their overall trainability scores fit within the average range, the 38th and 40th percentile. Both will be able to pick up new skills and respond to training. However, when we look at perceptual speed, that ability to pick up errors and ignore irrelevant information, as well as number speed and accuracy, that feeling comfortable working with and manipulating numbers, those are quite essential for this role, and here we can see the difference. Candidate A may struggle with that error checking. They may take longer than most, as their score is within the low range. When it comes to number speed and accuracy, they may also not feel as comfortable to work with quantitative concepts beyond a worked out spreadsheet. Candidate B has both of those subtests in the average range, which means they will be able to manipulate those numbers and pick up on those costly errors that could really impact the business. So overall, our preferred candidate would be candidate B, as their behavior fits the role requirements with compliance and steadiness above the line. You may have wanted a bit more dominance above the line, a bit more of assertive approach from a financial manager. However, when it comes to aptitude, that is where we can see the clear difference between these two candidates that would have mattered. Perceptual speed and number speed and accuracy are both within acceptable levels for this individual to thrive in the role. And if you look at reasoning, that problem-solving ability, it's also within the average range, which means they will also be able to cope with that reasoning on the fly and give those solutions. As you can see, combining the PPA and GIA really provides you with a much more well-rounded view of the candidate and allows you to pick up things that you might have missed out on when it comes to skill strengths as well as gaps. We hope you enjoyed this bite-sized training from Thomas International. If you would like to learn more about using the PPA and GIA together in your recruitment processes, please speak to your customer success manager who will be able to help. Goodbye for now.